Hey everyone, we still have several people who are joining, so we're going to give it one more minute if you don't mind. Thanks. All right, thank you. I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I'm just really quickly, my name is Janelle Beely, and I'm the Planning Services Section Chief here at the Illinois Department of Transportation. And thank you for joining us. Today we're going to talk about Move Illinois, our long-range transportation plan. This is our first virtual advisory group meeting, and as we move through the process of the working on the document over the next year, we'll be having more virtual advisory groups. I'll get more into that later, or the team will. So first of all, I just want to say, thank you again so much for joining us. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll address them at the end. Also, I just want to say that the Long Range Transportation Plan is a very comprehensive high-level plan. It is a roadmap, a strategic roadmap that outlines our goals, our objectives, and planned investments over an extended time frame, and that's usually from 20 to 30 years. It's designed to address various needs of Illinois residents in our extensive transportation network. That encompasses highways and other modes of transportation, such as bridges, airports, public transit, freight rail, transit, rail passenger systems, and much more. The LRTP serves as a guiding document for policymakers, transportation agencies, and stakeholders to aid in the decision-making process, funding allocation, and project prioritization. All right, next slide, please. I just want to make sure to let everyone know this meeting is being recorded, and we will have it posted on our Move Illinois 2024 website in the near future if you would like to go back and revisit something or recommend it to someone else for viewing. All right, and so our agenda today, we'll do a brief round of introductions for the project team. We'll give an overview of the LRTP. We'll also discuss your role as the advisory group. We'll have a progress update where we'll talk about our review of other relevant plans and our public engagement efforts. That'll be followed by some really interesting polling and discussion of our survey results to date, and then we'll talk about our next steps. Next slide. All right, as I said, I'm Janelle Beely, Planning Services Section Chief here at IDOT, and I am the project manager for IDOT on the Long Range Transportation Plan. I see Bree pop up, so I'll turn it over to Bree.
Hi everyone, Bree Tenholzen with HDR, and I've been doing the public engagement efforts on this project.
Jason?
Hi everyone, Jason Carby, also with HDR, helping with some of the technical aspects, assisting IDOT on this update.
Great, Sarah?
Hey, Sarah Radel, and I am running the WebEx today, so please let me know if you have any issues and I can help you troubleshoot. Thank you.
All right, and Alex.
I'm also on the HDR team assisting with the LRTP update.
And we do have Francisco.
Hi, y'all. I'm also helping with the outreach and helping out these public events we've been attending.
All right, is that everyone on the team?
I think so.
I believe so.
Okay, all right, great. Well, I will now turn it over to Bree to talk about today's tools that we'll be using during the webinar. Thanks.
Thanks, Janelle. Yep, so today we're using WebEx webinar, and that's maybe why you've noticed that you can't unmute yourself. But you can use the chat, so feel free to use that as much as you want if you've got feedback while we're on certain slides. And we're also going to be using a tool called Mentimeter, so I'll get into that more in a second on how to use that. It's going to be a survey activity, and you'll basically be using your phone or your computer to kind of see real-time results. I'll explain that more later, though. And so if you're having technical difficulties, you can chat Sarah Radel. I believe she just sent a message in the chat so that you guys all have her name. So if you can't hear us or you can't see us or Menti's not working for you, Mentimeter isn't working, feel free to chat her. You can also chat just the general chat and we'll make sure that your issues get worked out. But with that, I'll hand it over to Jason to continue with the rest of the presentation.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So this is the 2024 Long Range Transportation Plan update. We're calling it 2024 because we're updating it through the end of next year. And it really represents, and we're calling it an umbrella plan. You can see there's this suite of plans that Illinois DOT updates, and it includes a wide range of plans. And this is a policy-based plan that's really intended to be all-encompassing of all of these different modal plans and different kind of program area plans. And I think there's a few on here that some of you might have been involved with in the past. I know we've got some folks from the freight planning effort, and I had a couple of stats here to share that, you know, understanding that all of these plans are important, obviously, but that you know, Illinois, you know, freight is really important with, you know, the third busiest freight state as measured by value by FHWA, over, you know, 547,000 miles of roadway, over 10,000 miles of railroad tracks, and over 1,100 miles of navigable waterways. And so clearly freight was an important part, and I know a lot of you have been involved in those efforts in the past. Also the active transportation plan, I think we've got some representation from folks there, and we've been busy working on that plan as well with a lot of outreach. But you know, that plan is really focusing on providing a safe and equitable, context sensitive multimodal transportation network. You know, really looking at livability and connectivity and access to educational and occupational and social opportunities. And so that's just a couple of the plans that that we've been working on. But again, this plan represents an overarching plan that kind of, again, policy-based. We're not, you know, identifying projects in this plan, that those come from other efforts that the state completes, but really just trying to set direction for the entire planning process across the state and really looking for everybody's engagement on that. And so I mentioned this is going through the end of next year. This first phase is what we're going in here. You can see the first box there in phase one. And it's really been an effort of trying to, you know, reach as many, you know, people, citizens, stakeholders across the state and really try to help us focus on what's important. You know, what should we really prioritize as a state in terms of overarching goals? The next phase is really going to work through strategy identification and assessment. And, you know, we will have a second opportunity there for engagement with you, engagement with the public. Online tools will be available, and we'll talk a little bit more about the public engagement efforts to date and some of the tools that we've been working on. You can see here we do have the project website at www.moveillinois2024.com. We do have an online meeting, and the survey is open. You can see there's a QR code there. The survey is open through the end of this month, through the end of the year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then finally, the last half of 2024, be working through kind of the draft plan and recommendations and kind of coming back through the engagement process and, you know, kind of verifying, you know, what we've heard so far and just make sure that, you know, we're going down the right direction there. So your role as a member of the virtual advisory group or the stakeholder group, we're really looking for you to be kind of a sounding board as we go through this process. Again, I mentioned, there's a lot of different ways to be engaged in this plan. Really saw a lot of benefit of working with a group of folks kind of at different milestones throughout. And you can see we're going to meet 3 or 4 times throughout. They kind of overlap with those phases I just outlined on the previous plan, but really we're looking for you to provide input on transportation goals, objectives, priorities, to share valuable, message from your own communities. What are some of those issues and opportunities that we're seeing there? Collaborating with other stakeholders, planners, and community leaders, and kind of giving us some of that feedback. But again, really just wanting to help shape the future of transportation in Illinois. So again, in its role as an umbrella plan for the overall state, and for all that suite of IDOT plans that we talked about, we're incorporating all the work that's been done across the range of different sources, different modal plans, different programs, and all these different systems to kind of create an all-encompassing set of goals, objectives, policies, and strategies. And so we've done this by reviewing, you see the sources here, state and federal legislation, the bipartisan infrastructure law passed, a couple years ago really has changed a lot, and want to make sure that, all those changes were really working into this plan. We did review other peer states across the upper Midwest, looking for some things that might be relevant to Illinois that would be particularly beneficial and might help inform some of what we wanted to do, but learning from some best practices. That suite of plans that we talked about, really working on incorporating all of that. And then working with partner agencies, whether it's MPO, cities, counties across the state, reviewing, what they're doing, what's in their plans for transportation system, and trying to, again, incorporate that and try to be kind of all encompassing with this plan. We've got a really robust public engagement effort that we'll talk a little bit more about. And then the transportation system update is really taking all the data that we've collected as a state, and kind of combining that data on how the system performs today, along with all the engagement efforts, and start kind of taking all this information, data, engagement, and going down the path towards building that framework for what this plan is going to look like, and really working on drafting those goals and kind of performance areas. So the current plan, so this is an update on the 2019 plan. So the 2019 plan is policy-based and similar to this, is linked to that suite of plans. So the initial findings of what we've found so far in terms of building off that previous plan, and again, those goal areas in the last plan were economy, livability, mobility, resiliency, and stewardship. And so based on, the engagement that we've had so far and some of the things that we've kind of uncovered with some of the data, I think one of the areas that we've started to look at with safety is that, this continues to grow to be an area of emphasis. And really, when we think about it as an industry and transportation, one of the most important things for us to address. And so the current plan, the 2019 plan, does recognize safety and kind of has it spread out amongst all those goal areas you see there. But there's the potential maybe to elevate safety as its own goal area for this plan update. The 2019 passage of Rebuild Illinois has really done a lot to help with that second bullet, the maintenance of aging infrastructure. But again, we know that taking care of the infrastructure and the system that we've got out there today will continue to be important. Funding continues to be an issue as, motor fuel taxes and the transition to more efficient vehicles. We've got some, needs to address in terms of long range funding. And then obviously integration of equity, ensuring that everyone is sharing in the benefits of transportation investments, and the negative aspects of transportation don't particularly impact just one community. And then finally, technological change. Clearly, as we continue to go down the path and we see all the new technologies like, electric vehicles and, self-driving cars, those are things that are going to impact the transportation system. So throughout the review and through this phase and throughout plan development, we've been really looking at how each of these different plans, impact the goals, objectives, what are performance measures, how do we measure success, making sure that each of the decisions we make and all those strategies, how do they fit with our overall goals? Identifying issues and gaps in the system, identify strategies to, identify those, develop recommendations, and also really interested again in looking at how we can make sure that we're doing the best job we can to, be equitable in how we make these decisions. So our public engagement efforts have really had a wide range of different ways to stay engaged and really interact with people. And we're going to dig down on a few of these here in the upcoming slides, but we've had some in-person events. We have had a lot of virtual outreach opportunities, survey opportunities. And again, before you get off this today, we're going to hit home that survey is open until December 31st. We would love to hear from you and your opinions. Workshops, this virtual advisory group, and then working with IDOT to develop a diversity inclusion working group. So we've had a range of survey and in-person events. Survey, like I said, is now open through December 31st. We do have 2,700 responses so far. We're very, very happy with that. We're hoping to continue to get more, but we're promoting it throughout different channels, social media, emails. We've also been attending events across the state. You can see on the stars on the map here, we've tried to spread it out across the state. The Illinois State Fair in Springfield, the DuQuoin State Fair in DuQuoin. Region 1, we did Farmers Market in Garfield Park. In Region 2, we did both the Kankakee Farmers Market and the Quad Cities Farmers Market in Rock Island. In Danville, we did the River to Rail Ride. Springfield, the Old Capitol Farmers Market. Also in Springfield, the IDOT Fall Planning Conference. We'll talk about that here in a minute. And then finally in Region 5, did the Farmers Market in Carbondale. So again, we've talked about equity and how important it is, but as part of this effort, the team did develop an equity atlas, and I will try to pull that up here in a minute and share some of that with you. But really, when we develop these in-person events, we really were looking at how we could engage with folks that have traditionally not been involved in the planning process. So how could we site events in places where we would be able to interact with equity populations? And so really the list of a lot of those events that we talked about were really focused at trying to be adjacent and near equity communities. And again, working on that equity working group. Pop-up events, this is kind of an illustration of that, but I touched on this, that we really were focusing in on how could we engage with the community where they already were at, let them know a little bit about the long-range transportation plan, give them opportunities as we were in each district staff with IDOT were able to talk about some of the projects that the citizens in attendance at each of these events were really interested in. We heard very regional specific input from folks in attendance at each of these. So it was really good to kind of get out and have real conversations with folks, because it was great to get very locally tailored feedback at all of these locations. We did have a combination of paper surveys and online surveys. Again, trying to feed that whole engagement effort and get as much of that response as we could. And I haven't seen a roster. We'll figure that out here on Menti here in a minute, but some of you might have been at the Fall Planning Conference in Springfield. And so this was really where IDOT hosted their fall planning conference. It was a great opportunity to have a breakout session for the long range transportation plan. What we did was we had 9 different stations that focused on different potential goal areas or strategy areas for the long range transportation plan update. And we each spent 5 or 10 minutes at each station, moved from place to place, and had really great open kind of somewhat facilitated discussions, but the conversations kind of flowed naturally. And we had great discussions on some of the issues and opportunities and thoughts on each of these as a potential goal area, and really got some great notes from a lot of practicing transportation professionals across the state. Okay, and before we dive into the current survey results, I realize I turned off my camera. Sorry, guys. Let's see what you think. So here's, Bree, you want to take this over?
Yep, so we're going to start our first interactive activity. Feel free to head to menti.com, or you can take your phone and scan this QR code and then enter code 34291780. Again, that's 34291780. And you can also do this if you want to pull it up on your laptop if you're working off of multiple screens or can still hear us by doing that. So I'm going to pull the screen share from Jason.
Please do.
And once you guys do get to the Menti website, it should just say instructions. And so people always think they're in the wrong place, but they're not. That's perfect. You'll want to see the instructions. And Jason, can you again tell me the attendee count that we've got today?
16.
16, awesome. So I've got 8 thumbs up right now. I'll wait till we get to double digits before I move into the first question. Awesome. And we're at 11. So feel free to keep joining. If you join a little bit late, you'll just go to whatever question we're on. I will go ahead. So we've got kind of 2 warm-up questions for you and then 3 of our survey questions. So first question just being, where do you live? And this is just kind of for us to get a feel of who's on this call. So we've got all of the 9 districts that Illinois DOT has. And you can feel free to take a look at this map if you don't necessarily know which district you live in. And then we've also got the regions labeled on there too. So perfect. I think we've got several responses. All 11. Awesome. So it looks like mostly District 1, but District 6 is also coming in. District 2, 8, and 5. Perfect. Thank you, guys. Our next question is, what organization do you represent? So you should be able to click one of these options. We've got city or county government, state government, federal government, regional agencies, nonprofits, businesses, the consultant, or the general public. And if you're in an organization that we don't have listed up here, if we don't have a category for it, feel free to throw it in the chat. We still want to hear. Awesome. Looks like we've hit 13, 14. Okay, perfect. We're getting everyone in there. It looks like we're mostly regional agencies with also some state government, city, county government, consultants, and general public, and 1 nonprofit. Awesome. I will go ahead and hit next. So this is our first question that was featured on the public survey, and it is, what goals do you believe Move Illinois should prioritize? And we gave people the opportunity to select up to 5. So we're giving you that same opportunity. Feel free to use Menti to enter which 5 of these goals you think the next LRTP should prioritize. We did include 5 goals from the last LRTP. We added a couple more that we thought might be of interest. And then we also had an option for other on the public survey that said, if there is another goal that we don't have listed here, what do you think we should add? So for our other, in this case, feel free to send in the chat if you have another goal that you think would be good to be added here. Awesome. Looks like 11 responses with safety coming in first, and then mobility, equity, and active transportation right behind it. I think we're waiting on one. Yep, awesome. Okay, safety and equity take the top, and then active transportation, followed by livability and economy. Awesome. So in a second, we'll show you guys what the public said as far as we've gotten into the survey and kind of compare your guys' responses with theirs. But I'll move on to the next question. What modes of transportation do you use most often? You can select up to 3. We've got a variety of categories here: active transportation, air travel, automobiles, bike sharing or scooter sharing, electric scooters, all kinds of stuff. Looks like our top 2 categories so far, active transportation and automobiles, which is exactly what we'd expect and exactly what our first group said. We've got public transit coming in third. That is pretty standard for us. Good to see some taxis, ride sharing, bike sharing, and air travel in there as well. Awesome. I will go ahead and move next. Our next question is, what are the biggest transportation issues in your community? And you could select up to 3. We've got challenges in enforcing traffic laws and regulations, limited carpooling or rideshare programs, pet and bike infrastructure and connections, pet and bike safety, poor condition of roads, public transit access, and a couple others. So feel free to send in your options there. You get 3. Looks like poor condition of existing roads, sidewalk, or infrastructure is leading us. And we might have 2 more respondents, but we've got traffic safety coming in next, and then kind of a widespread public transit access to service and jobs, pet and bike infrastructure and connections, and pet and bike safety. I think this is very similar to the other groups. Looks like everyone's in there, so I will go ahead and move to our final question. This will be a word cloud. So we're asking, what is your vision for the future of Illinois transportation in 3 words? So you can send these separately or together, but at the end, we'll end up with a word cloud with all of your guys' words.
And we'll give you a minute or 2 here. This is putting you on the spot.
Suddenly you're like, do I know words?
Right. And it's late in the day, yes. We had a bigger group yesterday, and we filled up the screen. We'll see how we do here.
All right, now they're rolling in.
Good job, guys.
Safe, yes.
It's hard to put you on the spot like this and come up with good words like this. This is good.
So in our last meeting, safety came right in the middle, and it didn't really move. It sounded like people kept emphasizing that. So we see that here as well with safety and safe.
Right.
Innovative. These are, I think, pretty similar, right, Jason?
Yeah, they seem. I mean, again, there's a lot going on, but I think there's similar themes to what we heard last time. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got walkable and concrete and balanced. I think those might be different. Those are good. Sustainable, multimodal, affordable, efficient,
Yep.
equitable, effortless. Effortless. I like that.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we've got 15 responses there, so I will hand the screen share back over to Jason, and we'll tell you
Okay.
guys what the public responded.
Okay, so the kind of the standard modes most oftenly used was very similar to what you all responded. We had automobiles and active transportation were the top 2, with public transit coming in as the third one. I think that's probably as expected, and I think that's what we saw yesterday. Bree, that was kind of our order today, right?
Correct. Yep. Exactly.
Okay. For goal areas, I think I saw some different rankings with you guys today. So far, again, these are preliminary results from the survey, but I think what we've seen up to date with those 2,700 responses is that our top 4 are safety, active transportation, mobility, and livability. I saw equity scored pretty high with this group, and I believe that's at 6th here. Whoops, sorry. Bree, where did we score with this group?
Yeah, so equity and safety were both tied for the top at 12 votes. And then mobility and active transportation were tied for second with 11 votes.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. And then survey results, top issues. You can see here, hold on one second. Sorry, I'm getting a weird little setting here. Here we go. I couldn't read the top there. I apologize. The top 3 that we received so far on the public survey were pedestrian bicycle infrastructure connections, poor condition of existing roads, sidewalks, and infrastructure, and then pedestrian and bicycle safety were the top 3, with public transit access coming in right behind them there.
Mm-hmm. And Jason, on the Mentimeter activity, poor condition of existing roads, sidewalks, and infrastructure was our top vote, whereas it's second here. And second on ours was traffic safety, so that's a little higher up. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But then the rest kind of fall in line.
Again, I think we probably have a few industry industry insiders here. So again, it's one of those as we know, is in our industry, safety is of the utmost importance. We had that word cloud, that kind of, again, it's a little non-scientific, but it kind of gives an idea or an opportunity to give some other input into what should be important. And we're doing the same thing on the public survey. And it's going through 2,700 plus surveys and still counting. We are going through and kind of categorizing them. And so you can see here, these are just some examples of what we've heard, a very small sample of what we've heard. So we're kind of going through and an exercise similar to what you all just did in that word cloud, trying to put them into categories about what kinds of suggestions and comments we're hearing from folks. So here's a little bit of a discussion here. So for those of you representing organizations, we're wondering if you could share in the chat some of the main goal areas that your organization is put into transportation planning efforts. Any city, county, area, regional type plans. If there's and especially if you've got some unique areas, we'd be interested to hear some of that. So I don't know if I'm sharing my screen, so I can't see the chat, but if somebody, Janelle or Bree, you guys want to let me know what we're getting in the chat, and maybe think about this for a minute, but kind of let us know. You saw those goal areas that we'd been considering. Are those consistent with what your organization's done, or are there kind of other goal areas you're looking at that we should consider as well?
Well, people think, I'll talk about, so we had a duplicate of this meeting on Monday during the lunch hour. And we had a couple people talk about rural, having focus on rural, and also that, yes, Chicago, we had one public event up in Chicago, but so a couple people mentioned that since Chicago is such a big portion of the state, that we should go and have more discussions there since it's so large. So we're going to be doing another round of public engagement in the spring, so we'll make sure to keep that in mind. Another comment by one of our attendees was to basically go to where the people are and go to the transit hubs, go to Metra or Amtrak, and talk to people there. So those are some ideas that we thought were pretty good. So Jason, in the chat now we have one is to promote the investment into and use of sustainable, long-lasting concrete pavement.
Okay.
That's a good one. And we have various studies going on through the University of Illinois and Urbana-Champaign looking at sustainable options. So that's a good point to look into that. Another one is accessibility, equity, and sustainability. And
Yeah,
then,
accessibility is one of those new kind of interesting elements of the transportation system that we've really talked about the last few years, is just how connecting people in places, right? Kind of that, and doing it through multiple means. So yeah, no, that's a good one.
so someone here is talking about their goals that they've recently chosen for their LRTP, and connectivity is one of their goals, along with sustainability, reliability, quality of life, and safety. So that sounds similar to what we had our last round. So I think we're kind of on the right track. So we have Will County completed a countywide study taking a look at our dial-a-ride options that currently exist and how to increase mobility options for all residents, especially outside of just use of a personal vehicle. Yep. Oh, and a countywide alternative fuel study. Very good.
Okay. Fits in well with the electric vehicle planning efforts statewide.
Yeah, we at IDOT, we have our NEVI program, or we're doing this, looking into that. And that's that all those things will be touched on in the long-range transportation plan, since it's such an overarching document. Here we have increased transit and mobility options, address safety, relieve traffic congestion. That's public feedback from the Grundy County Master Plan. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, safety, it's just, it is what we do, right? That's number one. So we definitely, it's so important. I worked in the Bureau of Safety for engineering and programs for a while, and yes, it's so important. And then, so we have here asset management and creating a data-driven capital improvement plan.
Great. We should talk about being data-driven a bit. So, Jason, do you want to talk a little bit about, well, like we have our data-driven decision tool here at IDOT, but there are other data that we'll be using in this. We've done the discovery phase of getting what, the most current data for this as we move forward in the plan. You want to talk about that? You're kind of a data guy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's a range. So through this process, kind of laying out those goals, you identify, exactly what are the objectives, like what are we really trying to achieve with those goals, and so try to match up data so that through that decision-making process, you're using the data that we have to make decisions that really match up with our overall planning goals. And so, call it, performance-based planning, data-driven decisions. It's a great movement to kind of try and tie this input phase into the data, that we have to help us make better informed decisions that really match up with what our overall vision is and goals are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. I do see another here comment here about one, I think it's an MPO, is focused on, or it might be a municipality, focused on trails and trying to promote the trails. And we've actually, in our public, when we've gone out to these meetings, we've gone out, or farmers markets and various things, I've had trails brought up quite a bit. I guess I didn't realize that people, for me, I always use trails for recreation or exercise, but people are using trails to get to work or get to the store and all that. So that's really interesting too. That was a good point.
Yeah.
And then EV readiness plans, we're working on one of those, and reducing the negative impacts of ICE vehicles on EJ communities. Yeah. Speaking about data, so our when we are looking at these areas, we're looking at the various data that's available, which is we've been using the Justice 40 tool with the US DOT. We've been using the IEPA, and I'm blanking the EJ, their environmental justice information data. And then also we've been using the Department of DCEO, Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and they have a disadvantaged community layer that we've been overlaying on ours. And so that helps inform. And then there's other forms of data we've been using as well. Yeah, there you go, Jason, with the equity.
Yeah, I meant to show this earlier, but yeah, so here's your Justice 40, I believe, disadvantaged tracks across the state. Yeah, in orange there. But yeah, this is the equity viewer that we were talking about earlier that helped us kind of, it's got a range of different demographic characteristics. We could, look at limited English proficiency, and as you zoom in, you could kind of try to find, areas where we could kind of help cite some of those pop-up events that we talked about earlier. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and if you all know of any area that you think, it would be good for us to go to, like we went to Garfield Park. Are there any other areas where you live and where you work and where you think it would be very beneficial for us to go to? We have a big team. We have the consultant team, and then here at IDOT, we're also fully staffed in our communications team, and we have communications experts that are all throughout the state at all 9 districts, and we can go out and do some things there as well with the public engagement tools. Yeah. Oh, as a focus area. Okay, that's a good one. Creating and implementing ongoing, meaningful public involvement and stakeholder engagement is a focus area. Yeah. So we have a lot of this information on our website, moveillinois2024.com, and so as you're going to events or as you're, having meetings, reach out to us and we'd be glad to come and participate, give a brief presentation, bring materials to share with your constituents. And, we definitely have enough staff on board right now to handle that, and we'd be honored to go and present and, get more feedback and educate people about what we're doing here with the long-range transportation plan. Well, these are great. Thank you, guys. So, Jason, do you want to go to your next? Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So next step. So yeah. So like we were talking about with that schedule. So through over the next few weeks, we're wrapping up the first phase. Going to start taking all that feedback from the survey that we'll be getting, and this discussion is great. This is the kind of stuff we really want to get incorporated into and kind of build that overall, planning framework with the goals and objectives, and then really drill down and start working with, stakeholders, the department, folks across the state to really work on, how do we go from these goals and objectives to implementation? And so what are the strategies that addressed, kind of what we've heard? We will be kind of going back to touch points in this next phase and getting some feedback on, what these priorities should be for these strategies. And then, the department's going to kind of go through, review that feedback and kind of prioritize what those strategies are that are going to kind of start building that plan. And then the final phase is really taking all of that information, developing those recommendations and finalizing the plan and having a draft plan out for comment. I don't know, Janelle, you want to wrap up and ask if we had any questions?
Sure, yeah. Again, thank you. This was great discussion, great information. If you want more information or want any materials, you can go to moveillinois2024.com. You can also email us at dot.moveillinois@illinois.gov. And right now, I would like to offer an opportunity, if anyone has a question that they feel comfortable raising, then you could just raise your hand and we can unmute you and try to answer your questions.
Oh, I see Carly has a suggestion. Chicago get more equity in participants, suggest aiming for South and or West Side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Urban Grower Collective South.
Oh,
Yeah, okay. Plant Chicago's
I
winter
like
market.
that.
Oh, yeah, winter markets. Good stuff.
Winter market. That's a good idea. Great. I didn't even know such things exist. Yeah. Oh, we should have been at the Chris Kindle Mart downtown Chicago. Maybe
Yes.
that would that. I didn't even think about it. Great. See, thank you so much for sharing that. Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts or questions?
Okay. I'm not sure, Sarah. Are you able to see if people have questions? If they can they raise their hand?
Yes, I should be able to see if we have raised hand and I can unmute individuals if needed.
Okay.
I just tested it.
It worked great. Okay.
All right. So if you don't have questions now, that's fine. Feel free to email them to us, and we'll answer them to the best of our ability. And again, if you have an event coming up that you'd like someone on the LRTP team to present, we'll be more than happy to do that. So yeah, if there's no other discussion or questions, I think we can just wrap it up early. I know it's the Wednesday and people probably have to get home and get dinner going and all that fun stuff. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.